So go down and watch that.
Absolutely.
I used to go.
Well, we did get something from the public schools.
Good evening, Ira. Can you just verify that you can hear us?
I can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Okay, great.
We're good.
Thank you. Have a good evening. See you in a bit.
No, it wouldn't be. No, I know it's not today. I mean, you don't have to.
All right, can we get everybody to take a seat? We'll get this rolling. Thank you.
And, I would imagine something.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the annual school board budget public hearing. So tonight, we're going to hear about the budget one last time, and we're going to meet our candidates for the school board. That's all I have.
So that means I'm up next.
You're up next.
Okay. Well, we are going to do a budget presentation. We'll start out with that. Our business administrator will be going through the budget. After that, we have an opportunity for question and answer. You're here. As you see this, you hear this presentation, please do ask questions about it. That's the whole idea behind the budget hearing. Our Board of Education has voted on our budget proposal. We have it all set along with our other propositions for our budget vote and school board election, which is coming up on the 17th of May. So I think because this evening we have all of our candidates for the Board of Education who are wishing to speak, we want to make sure that everybody has enough time for that. You don't really want to hear me talk. So Jenny, Bellotta, do you want to go forward and talk to us about our budget proposal?
I'm going to step over here because I'm short and hidden behind this podium. If at any point you can't hear me, please raise your hand or point to your ear and I'll speak louder. Typically, people don't have an issue hearing me. So welcome to our 2022-2023 proposed budget presentation. We're excited to be here tonight presenting again on this final package that you'll see on the ballot 2 weeks from this evening. Mr. Martell is going to bring up the slideshow there. If at any point you can't see things on the screen or some of the font is pretty small, all of this information is and will be available on our website as well. So you can go to our website after this and take a peek at it also. Okay. The first thing we're going to start with is our mission and vision. As we begin to get back to a normal life, if you will, here at Olean City Schools, our focus really needs to be and is going to continue to be on the students. Our focus needs to be on our guiding principles. And as you'll see in this budget, we really have a lot planned and a lot to support our students moving forward into the next year. You'll see a significant increase on this budget from the expense side, although from the revenue side, there will be no increase to the taxpayers. So 0% increase to the tax levy for the following year. Starting out with our expenses. So what does our 22-23 budget look like? We are proposing an 8.36% increase in spending. Our total budget's just over $47 million. Again, no increase to the tax levy. So what that means is the portion that the district gets from the taxpayers will be the same as it was last year. So there will be no additional support from the taxpayers. We break this budget into three components: the capital, the administrative, and the program portions of the budget. And I'll go through each of them briefly, and if you've been to any of our previous presentations, you've probably heard a lot of this before. If we look at the administrative portion of our budget, it consists of 13% of our spending, just over $6 million. So if you think of the administrative portion, think of our central office expenses, a lot of our liability insurances, any of the expenses that we incur through our Board of Education. And what that means is the budget vote, any required trainings and whatnot. We do incur expenses in this category as well for the hiring of our personnel and for any legal fees that we incur. If we move on to the largest portion of our budget, the program portion is 71% of our budget. $33 million. Think of this as all of the expenses incurred directly related to the education of our students. So this includes your transportation, instruction in the classroom, extracurricular, any of our co-curricular programs, any support expenses that we have, nurses, counselors, technology. Technology falls into this as well. Okay. And then the final component is the capital component. Think of the capital expenses as our facilities, maintaining our facilities, any of the capital expenses we incur through the capital project for bond expenses, that falls into the capital project or the capital portion as well. Let's go on to the next slide and we'll break this down in a little different way. So let's look at this and say, okay, specifically for every dollar we spend in the district, what portion of that goes to what area? So let's start with central office and Board of Education. Think of anything in this hallway, okay? In this hallway, expenses incurred with a true administration and central office expenses. For every dollar we spend, 6.73% of that goes to those expenses. Teaching, supervision, transportation, counseling, athletics. 77.6% of the funding that we have goes to those expenses, as you would expect. Maintenance and operations of our facilities. So how do we heat our facilities? How do we keep the lights on? The personnel to keep that going. We have some large facilities. The crew does fantastic keeping them up. 7.02% of every dollar we spend goes to maintaining our facilities. Debt service and transfers. Debt service. Think of that as the bond payments that we make on our capital projects. I always compare that to your personal situation. It's your mortgage on your house. It's the mortgage we have on our facilities. We get state aid returned back to us though. So as we incur the expense, which you see here, 8.65%, we get state aid to offset that. Okay. Let's move on to the revenue portion of the budget. So there's our expenses. How do we pay for it? The largest portion of our revenues comes from state aid. Almost $32 million, just over 31 million, 67% of the revenue we take in comes from state aid. That's why if the state makes a cut or they increase state aid, it has such a profound impact on us. 29% of the revenues we take in come in from the taxes and from pilot agreements. Pilot agreements can have a big impact on districts as well. That's why we really have to keep a close eye on them.
Jenny, that pilot is payment in lieu of taxes.
Yes, great, yes. Pilots are payments in lieu of taxes. You'll oftentimes see those in the news. Corey Whitker is famous. You think of pilots, you think of Corey Whitker in Cattaraugus County. So as new businesses start up, oftentimes they look for tax breaks. And one of the ways they go about that is a payment in lieu of taxes. That's great. We're famous for acronyms in school. So if I ever use another one, please stop me and say, what does that mean? We should really have a cheat sheet for everybody. Other revenues, these can be anything from reserve funds to miscellaneous funds, accounts for about 2% of our budget. Fund balance and reserves as well as about another 2%. So as you can see from this, a huge portion of our revenues come from state aid. We're very dependent on state aid here, not only in the Olean City School District, but in the region as well. Okay. Let's talk about the tax limit a little bit. So you've probably heard of the 2% tax cap. The 2% tax cap is not necessarily a 2% tax cap. We have to recalculate it every single year. This particular year, the calculation allows us to increase our tax levy up to 2.73% without needing a supermajority vote of the taxpayers. What that means is we could have increased our taxes $378,967 for the Olean City School District. The Board of Education decided and said, you know what, if we can keep it at 0, we're gonna keep it at 0. And that's exactly what we're doing. So although we could have taken in that amount, we didn't. For every 1% that we would increase taxes, the district would take in an additional $138,881. But we are keeping it at 0 for next year. Just a little historical cap limit information. I know the numbers are small, so I focus on the big writing here. The chart represents an additional $2,696,051. What this means is if the district would have gone with a maximum tax levy limit they could have gone with every single year, we could have potentially raised $2.6 million more in the tax levy. Again, that has not happened over the last 11 years, but the tax cap calculation would have allowed for that. Okay. So what will your taxes look like next year? One of my favorite pictures, by the way, he's waving and there's the bubbles. He probably leveled up, I'm guessing. So what will your taxes look like? Although we are not increasing the tax levy next year or the amount we take in from taxes, some individuals, depending on the assessed value of their home, may see a small increase. And you say, okay, why is that? You just told us they weren't going up. Because of changes in assessed values, your assessment changes and that changes your overall tax amount. Okay, I'm hoping in the late summer, early fall, we can do a workshop to better explain this to people. So we still take in $13.8 million, but as assessments go up or down, everybody within the Olean City School District, their amount that they pay will change slightly. Fortunately, it's a very nominal amount. For assessed value of a property at $50,000, your tax bill could potentially go up about $2. These are based on assessed values for last year. This year has not been finalized yet. If you have a home valued or assessed at approximately $70,000 and you receive the basic star exemption, your taxes would go up approximately $3. A home at $100,000, basic star exemption would go up about $5. For our for individuals who qualify for an enhanced star exemption, as you can see, their taxes don't go up quite as much. They get that larger exemption. Okay. So the local impact. We oftentimes talk about our budget and how it's impacting us within these 4 walls, but how does our budget and the operation of the school impact the surrounding region? The New York State Association of School Business Officials has done this study over the last, I believe, 3 years, maybe 4 years. And what they're saying is, all right, Olean School has the equivalent of 378 employees, full-time employees. Now, we actually have more employees than that. We have just over 400. But that's the equivalent of full-time people. But when you look at the spillover or the impact that we have within the region because of other positions that are required to help us operate, you're really looking at another 246 spillover jobs. And you say, give me an example. What's a spillover job? When we order all of our fruits and vegetables for the cafeteria, that employs those individuals to bring them here. It employs the individuals at school specialty who are making all of our supplies and all of our equipment. The capital project is going to employ 4 different major contractors. These are all examples of, because of the operations and the support we demand from the outside, these are the additional jobs that our school created. And what they say in the study is, take your school district and take it out of here. Take it and plop it somewhere else. How many other jobs, other businesses will be impacted by that? And as you can see, it's a significant number. If we look at the income that is generated because of the school district operation, we're looking at about $20.4 million for our direct employees, $12.2 million for spillover positions. Then we look at the income tax and say, okay, how much income tax does that generate? Again, $1.6 million total between our employees and individuals who are impacted by the operations of our school. Sales tax, same thing. So what type of sales tax is generated because of the business we run? So I think this is a very important slide, and I'd like to share this because we oftentimes just think about voting on our school budget and how it impacts our students and our staff, but there's really a lot more outside that it impacts. Okay. All right, let's talk about the future. Planning for the future. Each year, as you know, we do a capital outlay project. And what that is $100,000 that we set aside in our budget to do capital improvements every single year. As we've seen this year, and as we will probably continue to see, we really don't get much for $100,000 anymore, unfortunately. What we plan to do and what will be in this, funded within the $100,000 in this budget, is installing more interior doors at Washington West. We're really hoping that will be our final installation of doors. I think, you know, Miss Stuff is like gagging back there, please hurry. It feels like we've been installing doors forever. But this should be the final. And then also the stage curtains, if they cannot be completed in the $24 million project, we will be looking to replace them in the capital outlay project as well. We're also in the process of doing a 5-year building condition survey this year, which will be completed by November. That will provide us a guideline for the future and what really needs to be done in our capital projects. And lastly, our long-range financial plan that we're working on, the 5-year plan there, so that we can better plan for the future financially for the district. So when you come to the Olean Intermediate Middle School Gymnasium in 2 weeks, what will you see on that ballot? The first proposition you're going to see is asking you to vote on the budget, $47,334,987. So that will be the first proposition. Okay. The second proposition is a new one this year. And we are seeking approval for a vehicle purchase reserve fund. Now, we currently have a $500,000 vehicle reserve now. If anybody's bought a vehicle lately, if anybody's looked at the prices of buses lately, unfortunately, you can't get a lot for $500,000. We have approximately 10 buses that we run on a daily basis. Bare minimum for a bus right now is about $130,000. Going forward, we'll be purchasing electric buses in the future as well. So as you can see, that $500,000 doesn't last long. When we create these reserves, they have a term or a useful life of only 10 years. So the law says if there's money left in that reserve at the end of 10 years, you have to either spend it or renew that reserve or liquidate it and put the money elsewhere. So we currently have the $500,000 reserve. We're looking to transfer that money into a new reserve with a $2 million limit. We're hoping that $2 million limit will provide us enough funding to get through an 8-year rotation on our buses. Our goal is to replace those buses every 8 years. In this neck of the woods, once you have a bus beyond 8 years, you really start to see it nickel and dime it. They really start to add up on the maintenance of them. Okay, so again, there will be that new reserve we're looking for your approval on. We will take that $500,000 from the current reserve and transfer that into the $2 million reserve. So we will only have one reserve at that point for the next 10 years.
To be clear, Jenny, that's just establishing the reserve. It doesn't mean we're filling it with $2 million, but what you do have to do is determine the limit of your reserve. So it does not mean that we'll be putting 2 million into it. It's just everyone's voting on whether or not we're permitted to establish the reserve.
That's a great point. Yep. And so then you ask, how will we fund that? So each year, if we have money left at the end of our budget, the board will determine if they want to fund that reserve that particular year or not. Some years we may be able to, some years we may not. Okay. Fortunately, we do have a reserve plan that we review every year as well for those. And lastly, we have school board members. As you know, we have 3 vacant positions. In a few moments, you'll get to hear from our 6 candidates. The individuals with the top 2 votes will be on the board for a 5-year term beginning July of 2022 and going till June 30th of 2027. The individual with the 3rd highest number of votes will be starting immediately or after they take the oath of office after the vote. Their term will go through June 30th of 2024. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you're going to see on the ballot in 2 weeks. Again, you'll have the opportunity to vote from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on May 17th. This will be at the Olean Intermediate Middle School Gymnasium. I believe this is the 3rd year that we've done it there now, and it's worked out very well. We have opportunities to spread out. If there is any need for an absentee ballot, or if you have any questions, please contact our district clerk as well, and she can guide you through them. Okay. So I know I went through a lot. There's a lot of information. How do you get more information? If you go to our website, go to the business office or the business administrator page, there's a link on there and it says budget information. When you go to the budget information, there will be our budget booklet on there, which is a document like this. It has tons and tons of additional information in there. I encourage you to go look at that, especially if you have questions. If you do have questions after that, by all means, please email us, call us. Actually, do you want to scoot back one, Mr. Martell? There's a reserve spreadsheet. If you were at our last presentation, we talked about the reserves that we have. That spreadsheet is up there. And we also have our budget notice up there. And I will be putting this presentation up there either tonight or early in the morning as well. So there's lots of opportunities to see a lot of information. We are required by law to put this information out. There's stuff in there about student achievement, our report card, tons of stuff in there. So let us know if you have any questions. On to the next one. And there we go. So there's my email. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, call the district. We'd be happy to help in any way. Okay. Let's open it up for questions. Yes, Tim.
Going forward, you talked about the how does that change our expenses? How long did those buses last? You're saying every 8 years right now. Does that change that dynamic? Does it free up money in our budget going forward, or is it cost?
Tim, those are great questions. So in case anybody didn't hear, he said, how will the electric buses impact us? We're proposing a new bus reserve. Will that save us any money? Will it cost more? What is the impact of the electric buses? Unfortunately, we don't know for sure yet. They provided us some guidance last week. They tried some new buses out in California. They worked fantastic. They started the very first electric bus in Alaska, which really intrigued me because one of our biggest concerns is how long are those batteries going to run when you've got a bus, operating at 5 below zero. It did work a lot better than they thought, but the average operation on the batteries for the buses in Alaska was about 800 miles. Okay. Now that's good, but unfortunately it doesn't give us enough. So there's a few issues. We're not sure when they'll be available for sure, or when there will be enough of them available. We don't have a good idea yet on how long batteries will last or anything like that. So unfortunately, we don't know. We had actually determined the $2 million before the electric bus requirement. So I predict that we will have to revisit that once we have a better idea about those. I really don't see fleets being fully electric in this area until closer to the time of requirement, because I just don't think we're going to have the infrastructure for them either. Not just does Olean have to be ready for them in Portville and Allegheny, but the whole Western New York region, because if we're taking, we'll say Envirothon or OM to Syracuse, I need to make sure there's charging stations in Syracuse and all the way along the way. So I don't see us going fully electric until closer to the deadline. But you're right, that's top of the radar. Any other questions? Okay. If you have questions, by all means, you know how to contact us, and please do so. We want to make sure that everybody has all the knowledge they need to go into vote. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bellotta. Okay, at this time, just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I would like to welcome our board candidates. What we're going to do is have, first of all, let me just say this. I'm very thankful that we have 6 individuals who have stepped forward to give of their time and of their heart and intellect to even consider board service. Let's remember that service on the Board of Education is not a paid position, and it is one that takes an awful lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication. You can speak to any of our board members right now, and I'm sure they could say the same thing. Those of us who are not serving on the board and are members of the greater community are thankful that we do have individuals who want to step forward and serve on the board. There's a lot to it. It's a very important position, and it helps to direct and guide everything that happens within our school district. So let me just say that thank you for all of you for coming forward. What we're going to do is have each person come up and speak for up to 5 minutes, if that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. And who's our timekeeper here?
Mary, can you do that for us?
Thank you, Mary. And then what we also have some wipes up there. What we're asking is that after every speaker, just to keep things clean, if you could just do a quick wipe for the next person. And first person up to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you had chose to run for the board, Gary W. Harvey Jr. If you would please come up to the podium.
Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Okay. I want to say thank you for the current members of the board, the community, faculty, staff, for the opportunity. It's definitely not something that I take lightly by any stretch of the imagination. I grew up in this community and an alum of Olean High School. Now, I want to start before I go any further with 2 quotes that have always stood out for me. And the first one is, "A man who attains mastery of an art reveals it in his every action." And the second is very simply that excuses are tools of the weak, and those who specialize in them build monuments of nothingness. Now, with that being said, again, I'm a graduate of Olean High. I went on to college. I served in the United States Army. I'm a combat veteran, served over in Iraq with 2-7 Infantry. And when I came back to this area, when I came back to the community, there's been a lot of things that have stood out to me, especially over the course of the last year. And we are on a cusp of a situation where we have adults oftentimes forgetting that this is really about the direction and the molding of the kids, of the young people. And we have a tendency to push our ideologies. We like to make statements and comments about not forcing ideologies on ourselves and on our homes, but we have no problem pushing it on others. And we don't even realize that. I feel it's with good intent. You're looking out for the best interest of your young people, etc. My desire to be on the board is to truly have an impact in that area. We live in a society, we live in a community where not everybody thinks the same, not everybody feels the same, not everybody believes the same. And that is 100% okay. It's acceptable. It's a necessity. If we're truly going to maintain or truly obtain mastery of an art, we have to be willing to experience other thought processes. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them. And each one of our policies, as we review these policies, we have to take into consideration, are they what's in the best interest of the young people? Are they in the best interest of the faculty, of the staff? Are we creating a safe and conducive environment for the teachers to be able to teach our young people? And that doesn't mean that these policies are going to make us all feel warm and fuzzy inside. It doesn't mean that we're all going to agree on them. But did we take the opportunity to actually look and see how it's going to affect, not just in the present, but in the future? And so my desire is to kind of be that bridge, so to speak, to be able to look at points of view. One thing that I know that I can do is look at avenues and thought processes that are different than my own and still respect them and still cultivate those things. And so I believe that's a necessity. One other thing that's been heartbreaking to me is hearing about how you have, well, we've spent too much time on this. We've already been here. We're going to be here till past 8 o'clock. Well, that shouldn't be anything you hear from a member of a school board that volunteered and actively pursued the position. However, it has been something that we have heard, and that's something that needs to change. You know, we have a lot of pick and choose when we want to address things, and we have a process for public speaking, but we deny dialogue with the community. You can't have any type of growth without dialogue, and dialogue sometimes is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's really uneasy at the end of the day. You have to be able to have difficult conversations and still walk away with a level of respect for one another. And to have the process that we have right now with public comment and picking and choosing when we're going to let someone who didn't sign up speak or sign up after or before the agenda comes out, et cetera, it prevents a level of transparency that is necessary in order for us to grow. And so that aspect, that necessity of transparency, that's something else that I want to strive for. Because you as community members, whether I agree with you or not, have a right to speak, have a right to be heard, and have a right to be understood, regardless of if we see eye to eye. Because we're all invested in the greatest resource in our community, and that's our young people. And we have to be able to come together and realize that that's what we're here for. We're not here to check the box. We're not here to get appointed so we can put a title behind our name. We're not here to be important in the community. We're here to put our hand to the plow and do the work that's necessary to give our young people the opportunity to truly obtain mastery of an art so they can reveal it in their every action. They can reveal it in their conversation. They can reveal it in the way that they interact with the community and interact with their classmates. They can expose themselves to other thought processes and really give them an opportunity to grow. Are the policies safe? Are they conducive? Do they create a productive atmosphere for our young people? Those are things that we need to pay attention to. And so it's with great humility and thankfulness that I take the opportunity to even have the chance to run and hopefully be able to make a difference here for our young people. Thank you very much for your time.
Daniel J. Farnham.
Well, like the last two speakers, I also apparently might need to step to the side a little bit. And Gary, that was very well said and a tough act to follow. Public speaking is not my strong suit. I just want to start by saying Happy Teachers Week to all of our incredible teachers. My children in this community are extremely blessed to have all of you. Hello and good evening. My name is Daniel Farnham. I have been a resident of this amazing city all my life. I grew up in North Olean. I ice skated on the frozen creek here, played at our historic parks. I swam at War Vets and Franchette pools. And of course, I've enjoyed Reed's Donuts and Renna's Pizza for 33 years. I love this city. For the last 11 years, my wife and I have had the opportunity to experience our city in a different way. As parents to 3 incredible Olean Huskies who are toughing it out with me near the front here. Since our son first entered preschool here in Olean, we have been so impressed with the quality of education that the Olean school has given our children. The teachers here have unbelievable passion, empathy, and talent. Recently, COVID tried to steal some of that from us. I have been blessed to serve this city by working with and leading an incredible team at our urgent care for the last several years, all while trying to teach my children with the amount of skill that our teachers have. And I quickly realized that I couldn't do that. Look, most of us deserve a huge pat on the back. I'm assuming the majority of us did not have teaching experience. We strapped down and sacrificed to keep our kids moving forward to the best of our ability. Forgive me. Unfortunately, the average student still fell several months behind. As the students returned to school full time and our teachers and staff have been working admirably to bring them current, another issue became clear. Stress, anxiety, and depression are now much more prevalent in schools than ever. So when I think about what our schools and what our schools need as our country and community heals, I think that a focus on mental health tops that list. And I want to ensure the school has the resources and tools needed to aid and support our children and our staff. Like many of these amazing candidates, I'm focused on policy and budget reform to ensure issues like these get the attention they deserve. I'd also like to take this opportunity to personally pledge that I'll make this community more aware of goings-ons with the school board and to increase transparency, as Gary said. I have spoken with dozens of concerned parents who feel like they cannot trust the district as they have in the past. And this is a relationship that I feel must be rebuilt and maintained going forward. And above all of this, the reason we're here and the reason we sacrifice day in and day out, the kids. There are going to be plenty of people twisting what this election is, wanting it to run like political theater, but that's not why we are here. We're here to improve the lives of our children and their dedicated teachers. I was born, raised, and educated in this city. I currently reside, work, worship, and raise my family proudly here. I'm as invested as it comes, and it's going to show. Thank you.
May the fourth be with you.
Next up is Paul A. Hesney.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Hesney, and I've made Olean home since 1971. I've been associated with the Olean City School District for over 50 years as a parent, a teacher, a grandparent, and as a spouse of someone who fought valiantly for all the right causes until her death. We all want what is best for our kids and what is best for our community. Hopefully, this is the one guiding principle that we can all agree on. We want to provide the best education for our kids in the best way that we can. Here we are this evening, all wanting the same thing, but perhaps disagreeing on how to accomplish our main goal and disagreeing over who and what is most important. I see different groups here tonight who are passionate about their beliefs and what issue they feel is most important. I also see educators and support staff who are trying so hard every day, day in and day out, to make this school system not just work, but to make it the best that they can for our kids, because they love those kids and they love what they do. And sometimes those employees, those dedicated individuals, feel undervalued or taken for granted. We, the rest of us, the community at large, must never overlook their most essential contribution to our kids and to our community. I see other members of the community here tonight who, like myself, are advanced in years and on fixed incomes. We, property owners like myself, want the best for our children and our community, but we're worried about our taxes and about what we can afford. And most important, I see parents and grandparents like me who are worried about one overriding concern: their kids and their kids' education. Let's face it, we're in a political arena here. And although we all want most of the same goals and dreams for our kids and for our community, we don't always agree on how to get there. This is politics, but this is also democracy at its most basic grassroots level. That's why I personally am encouraged to see so many candidates running for the board this year. This is what we need: involvement, commitment, a passion to make our schools and our community the best that we can for all of us, and most importantly, for our children. This is what democracy is all about. 2021 is my 9th year on the Board of Education. I am the only incumbent seeking re-election at this time. I entered this arena as a new board member in 2013 with passion and commitment to try to change and improve our schools and our community. I've worked hard during that time on basic issues that affect us all. Sometimes, most times, progress is frustratingly complicated and agonizingly slow. And although it isn't always apparent, we as a district are making gradual progress through these exceedingly challenging times. Democracy is a slow and efficient system, but it is also the best system, the only fair system we have for choosing those who represent us. So if I am reelected to a 3rd and final term on the school board, I look forward to continuing together the work that we have begun, to continuing the long, difficult process of healing and improving our school district and our community. If I am privileged to serve for another 5 years, I look forward to working with our new board members in continuing the never-ending work begun long ago of improving our school district and our community for the future of our children and grandchildren. So I hope everyone will come out May 17th, support the schools with a yes on the budget, and in parentheses, we have kept the tax levy at 0 increase, and vote for the candidates you feel will try to do the best for everybody in Olean. Thank you.
Next up, we have Timothy R. Sherlock.
Hello. Please let me know if you can't hear me, but I have a loud voice. Dear board members, Olean teachers, staff, and fellow community members, thank you so much for the honor to speak tonight and hopefully to be elected. I want to start out by saying that I'm a 2001 alum of Olean High. I was born and raised here, and I've chosen to raise my child here. I have a son in the Olean Intermediate Middle School, and I raise my nieces. I have 3 young ladies spanning from elementary all the way up to a junior this year. So when I say I am invested, I am invested. I know what it was like to grow up in this area and to grow up in this school. And I know that Husky pride runs deeper than anywhere else. We had a teacher here named Mrs. Waymeyer, and she gave speeches about how Olean High was the hub of the universe. All roads led here. We need to be that again. This year has posed many challenges to our district and to our community. It has shown parents and community members that we have things in our district that must be changed. We are facing both in the here and now and in the not so distant future, problems such as budgetary deficits, curriculum deficits, and policy deficits. Like every candidate who has been here before me and will speak after, we all want the same thing, and that is what's in the best interest of each and every child in this district. But that's not enough. I want what's best for each child, parent, community member, teacher, staff, faculty member, maintenance worker,
Anyone who steps foot on our property in this district, I want the best for them. I want them to feel valued and appreciated. I want them to feel heard. I can say that as one of the candidates besides Paul, who has been to every board meeting minus a handful, I have shown that I'm invested. I have read that policy book, and I can bet there aren't many in this room who have, front to back, 3 times. I want a district that is in line with not only the state and federal mandates, but also in line with the times and the community. We must be more transparent, not with ourselves, but with each and every one in this district. We must better utilize the technology we have at our disposal. There is no reason that anybody should ask a question in this district. It should be there. We must be more accountable to each and every stakeholder in our community, starting first, of course, with the students. We have taken an oath to educate and protect these students. With that, I have 3 main objectives. 1, a review of all of our policies and procedures to ensure that they are in line with state and federal law and mandates. But also, I want to look at how are they implemented. Are these policies effective? Are they equal? Are they the same for each and every person in our community, whether they are administration or student? 2, we must start looking at where the district can save money. We got 0% this year. It's not going to happen again. Rate of inflation is far too high. But the one thing that we cannot afford in this district is higher taxes. Cuts are going to happen. So I want to look at where those cuts are going to be, and I want to make sure they're not instructional cuts. As I asked before, and I know the board is doing it, we need to look at green initiatives. Where can we save money? If you've been at the board meetings, you know we have spent over $50,000 a month in just utility costs. We need to bring that down. We must do more to bridge the gap of trust and communication that exists in our community. It's a huge gap, but it's not just between community and the district. We need to bridge that gap between teachers and administration, administration and teachers, students and administration. It is full circle. We must be holistic in our approach. We must create a district that moves forward. I have been a big proponent and I stand behind it. With communication, there's always middle ground to be found. There is always a starting point to build from, because if we cannot have that, if we cannot communicate, we're stagnant, and stagnant equals no growth. If we're not moving forward, we are doing a disservice to our students. I want to take a moment to say thank you. I will be answering questions after the meeting, and as always, between now and election, I will answer any question that anybody in the community may have. Thank you again.
Next up is Rochelle L. Weisman, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Weisman.
Thank you for allowing me this time to introduce myself. My name is Rochelle Wiesman, and I'm running for a seat on the board. 20 years ago, when my husband was honorably discharged from the Marine Corps, we had a choice to relocate anywhere in the country, and we chose Olean, where we were welcomed with open arms and where, for the past 2 decades, our 2 sons have been raised here, attended school here. And we have been active members of the community and the school. I feel I'm an excellent candidate to serve on the board because I have a unique perspective. I'm a homeowner, I'm a parent, I was previously employed by the Olean School District, and currently as a homeschool liaison social worker at CA BOCES, I actively collaborate with over 16 surrounding districts. I see the issues through a variety of lenses, which enables me to recognize the way those issues affect multiple parts of a wider system. I am definitely passionate. Being passionate means being devoted to a cause and having an unwavering confidence that that cause is worth supporting. In this case, I'm devoted to Olean, and I am confident that our district can be a leader in Olean's revival as a strong, cohesive community. My passion is what motivates me and my ability to see the whole picture logically and make rational decisions. It keeps me going. As someone I admire once said, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And I know change can be rough, and we've had a lot of change in Olean. The school closures and consolidations we went through still stings a bit. Believe me, I was right there with it through all of it. Our oldest son was in 4th grade, and he was the first class to go to OIMS. I remember being uncomfortable, even kind of scared for him. Many people at that time chose to act on that fear by moving their children to neighboring districts rather than allowing the process to play out. But I put that fear aside and I educated myself. Once I had all the information, I understood that these changes were necessary and that even though I didn't like my son going to the middle school as a 9-year-old, I had to trust the people making the decisions were making them in good faith and with sound judgment. But it seems that to me every year, that level of trust between the community and the school board declines further and further. Pretending this division isn't there or isn't a problem would be a disservice to all of us. Rebuilding that trust needs to be a top priority. And if elected to the board, I am committed to being part of that effort. It's a heavy lift, for sure. But if we can work together as a board, as a district, and as a community, we can surely do better. We all took different paths to get to the auditorium tonight. Each one of us started in our own location, and we all took our own routes to get here. Some of us came from around a roundabout up Sullivan Street. Some of us took State Street to 4th Street. And I'm sure there were 100 other variations of the way people got here today. In fact, many of us probably passed each other. But we all wound up in the same place and for the same reason. We want our district to be better. We want our district to do better. We care about Olean School and the Olean community. Ultimately, we all want well-adjusted students, engaged caregivers, proud employees, and residents that trust our board to do the right by its community. But since we can't all be on the board, let me be your voice. I understand the needs of the stakeholders, and I am committed to making sure that your voice is heard and respected. I am committed to doing better. Thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Lee W. Filbert.
Good evening. My name is Lee Filbert. I'm a lifelong resident of the greater Olean area, along with my wife and my 2 daughters. I'm also a New York State certified teacher with an undergraduate degree in adolescent education from SUNY Fredonia and a master's degree in school building administration from St. Bonaventure University. I have 8 years of experience in both teaching and administrative roles, and I am seeking election to the Olean School Board. My purpose in running is first and foremost to promote and support the education and well-being of students of the city of Olean, which I believe to be endangered through a loss of conscious, deliberate, and critical local control against an entrenched educational bureaucracy in Albany, which seeks to rule by ideological fiat rather than the consent of the people of Olean. It is my conviction that local and parental control of our students' education must be jealously guarded against any and all designs which would diminish this natural right of the family and the parent. And of course, any increase in control by the government in Albany, not necessary, any control of the government in Albany that is not necessary must necessarily see a diminishment in the authority of the local community and of parents. To illustrate my point, the purpose of school is education of its students. Education is only meaningful insofar as it corresponds to what is true. Were I to teach a kindergartner seriously that the moon was made of cheese, no one would assume that I had educated that student. Given that any policy which codifies or mandates a manifest falsehood cannot by any nature correspond to what is true, such policies and mandates must be critically scrutinized and viewed with suspicion, regardless of their lofty origins. Such policies must be viewed with suspicion in order to preserve our school against anti-educational prescriptions from an entrenched educational bureaucracy. If elected, I will guarantee critical eye and critical voice on the board in favor of local and parental control of our students' education. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to remind everyone who's seated here this evening, who's staying through to the Board of Education meeting, that if you wish to speak, we do have a sign-in sheet that looks like this. If you did not register ahead of time, you must register before the meeting starts. It's right outside the door. If you didn't get a chance to, we want to give you an opportunity to do that now. And in a few moments, we'll be starting our Board of Education meeting, our regular meeting, and bringing that list of speakers to our board president for that portion of the meeting. Thank you very much. And thank you again to all of our Board of Education candidates. Thank you for speaking and for providing this opportunity for the greater community to get to know each of you a little bit better. So we'll start with the meeting in just a few moments.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started here. We got quite an agenda and we're enthusiastically gonna work our way through it.
Enthusiastic.
First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Please?
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we would ask for a moment for silent prayer, personal reflection, get our heads right, do the work of the board. Thank you. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Julio. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, on to communications and commendations. Exciting news this week. We have a valedictorian and salutatorian announced. Alexis Tritley is our valedictorian, and Sarah Thomas is our salutatorian.
We ask that you stand just a little bit longer. See you and congratulate you.
Congratulations to both those people. Next up, we want to congratulate the following students nominated for the March-April 2022 Harold Dutton Spotlight Award. Olivia Eman, Damon Ligori, Leah McLaughlin, Molly DeRose, Ava Borer, Sophia Ruchinsky, Frank Prekas, Jacob Spears, and Alyssa Metz. Congratulations to those students. OIMS has announced its top 15 academic students in grades 6 and 7. I'm going to go ahead and read those names out so they can be recognized. They are just in alphabetical order, but these are the top 15 students in grade 7. Emma Adamski, Emma Anderson, Lakesh Anumulaseti, Mia Bean, Simran Shahal, Lena Chaudhry, Addison Crossan, Jonas Easley, Audrey Hoffman, Deanna Menard, Rain Maynard, Theodore McClellan, Angelina Key, Natalie Snyder, Ethan Woodring. In 6th grade, it was Liam Austin, Haley Bednarski, Colby Booth, Vina DeSerbo, Rachel Dolmas, May Eaton, Ariana Finch, Velocity Menachino, Madison Morehouse, Garrick Perry, Guravar Prasad, Zena Rafi, Kaylee Van Dam, Layla Van Dam, and Nicole Yang. Congratulations to those people.
So we know that some of our students are on the Washington trip right now, and I've received some. We had invited students, of course, to be here this evening as we're recognizing them. And I know that some of them are on the trip, and I understand having a fantastic time in Washington, DC. But at this time, if we have any of those students whose names we've called thus far, if you want to come down, please, for a picture with our Board of Education. Don't be shy. Come on down. We're very proud of what you've done.
How many you guys?
I don't.
You want to just gather up here with the students?
Okay.
Or maybe
Around.
Yeah, we're in the back here. Jump on the stage.
Beautiful, thank you. Awesome. Come around, yeah.
We just wanted our exercise, so.
Yeah, right. Be very strict.
I heard you smiling. Right?
Congratulations, one and all.
Hey, Maria.
Sixth and seventh graders, thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you.
Congratulations, guys. Nice job. She's probably at the track meet. She's at the track meet.
Okay. That's why we have photos. Bring it in.
Right.
Okay.
What a proud moment for Mr. Well, and also your
still
sixth and seventh graders. Just all the way around. Good.
Yes.
Good time.
All right, we're gonna move right on. We're also gonna recognize that there was a Jump Rope for Hearts fundraiser at Washington West Elementary School. Students in grade 2 and 3 raised $2,609.87 for the American Heart Association.
Nice job.
That's motivation. They got to dump ice.
I see that,
their
yes.
phys ed teacher, which is
All right.
fun. Darwin Alloy raised the most. Is that $529?
It is.
Wow.
Good push.
All right, also list of people who participated and also raised a bunch of money was Liliana, or are these the over 100? These people raised over $100.
Okay.
Liliana John, Everly Bellick, Mason Duplashane, Caleb Dodge, Matthew and Mackenzie Barrett, Elwin Hearn, Lillian Z, Dawson Graham, Isla Nolan, Benjamin Wilson, and Trinity Teeter. Next up, we want to recognize the Envirothon Club. This is Olean's first year participating in the program, and the competition was held at Camp Allegheny in Allegheny State Park. We had one team with a total of 5 students participating. Hartley Phipps was the team leader. Grace Ring, Rose Scordo, Peyton Reynolds, and Simon Clark. These students have worked very hard all year studying their topics and preparing themselves for the competition. I'm very happy to announce that the Olean City School District placed 3rd overall for Cattaraugus County for the New York State Envirothon competition. Great job to those students. I
And
also
do we
want
have those students here?
I think they just stood up and waved.
I think that will
Oh, did
come
they
on
stand up?
forward, please.
All right. Better.
Oh, we're going again?
All right, let's gather here and we'll just have the students stand.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Is this gonna work?
First time out, you came in 3rd place.
I know, nice job on that.
Thank you.
I have just one more thing I want to add to that. The unified basketball competition or tournament is happening tomorrow at Bona's. That starts in the morning, right? For most of the day.
Starts in the morning.
And this is, I don't think they've done it in a couple of years.
We haven't done it in a couple
So
of
this
years
is a
with
return of a
everything
great
going
program.
on. So, yeah, so I'm so excited that that's back. I knew it was coming. I just didn't realize it was coming up as
Yeah,
fast as it was. Holy cow.
that's great.
It's exciting.
So I do have something from the staff side. The Cornell Cooperative Extension of Cattaraugus County, in their latest newsletter, Extension in Action, there's a wonderful article that I just wanted to point out here. Welcoming in our new farm to school coordinator is our own coordinator here, Michael Nelson. And we're very proud to have her with us. And we're going to see more farm to school initiatives happening in our school, focused on nutrition and involving students more and more. And this is all the result of a grant. So thank you, Mrs. Bellotta, for helping to spearhead all of this and get it going for us. But we're very happy that she has this nice article written. And on behalf of the entire Board of Education and a very grateful school community, our thanks to all of our teachers in this Teacher Appreciation Week. Just want to say thank you for all that you do. Not only what you do each and every day in your job, but everything that you do above and beyond. You care for our students, you teach our students, you help them grow, you're friends to our students. And we heard it a little bit earlier about how important it is to people once they graduate from our school district. And it's because of you and what you do all the time. We thank you for your service to our students. And when we do Teacher Appreciation Week, we recognize that all adults are teachers. So that also goes out to our support staff and everyone else who works with our kiddos each and every day. Thank you very much. A week isn't enough, but we're glad that we're meeting during this week so we can say
Yeah,
thank you.
that's nice.
All right.
Yeah, very nice.
Next up is communications. We did have one letter we received from Christopher Elman on 4/25. And then we had some more today that'll be listed on the next board meeting. Discussion items. We have from the guidance department, a graduation postgraduate plan and scholarship applications.
Good evening. My name's Matt Treehouse. I'm one of the guidance counselors at the high school, and I spoke before you, I believe it was mid-February. Mid-February, excuse me, and we talked a little bit about some of the good things that were going on in the school. At that time, spoke a lot about the college credit options, the dual enrollment program that we have. And this time around, I wanted to speak a little bit about the graduation preparations that we have going. Our senior students and teachers with, I guess, less than 30 school days left are working hard to finish up any last minute things that they need to do to complete their coursework. And a couple of the nice things we have planned for them. First one being the Parade of Graduates, which started a few years back, where we have our seniors put the caps and gowns on, and they visit every school and walk through the hallways, see their former teachers. I know my wife, being a first grade teacher, gets a big kick out of that.
Yeah.
Seeing some of the kids that she taught many years ago. That will take place on May 27th from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. And immediately following, the students will return back to Olean High School to have their picture taken to display at the hallway. Once again, we will be doing the senior banners on North Union Street. And it was a big hit a few years ago. And I know the kids really look forward to that. Parents, I believe the plan is that Public Works will put those up after Memorial Day, and those banners will remain up until graduation. We're also going to do the Avenue of Graduates, which also started a few years ago. That's going to take place on June 18th, beginning at 4 p.m. Seniors and their parents or guardians will be asked to stand under their banner. That'll be uptown, and residents of the city of Olean will be encouraged to come by and celebrate with them and the families. We also see a lot of our members from surrounding communities come through.
Can everybody toot their horn?
Everybody can toot their horn.
Okay, got to do that.
And the actual ceremony, of course, is planned for June 25th at 11 a.m. right here in the auditorium. I wanted to just also update everyone on our seniors' graduation plans. I spoke a little bit about this back in February. There was some small changes, but since then we were able to compile with a little bit more specifics that we have 97 students planning to attend college. 76 of those will attend in-state colleges. 21 of our seniors will plan on attending out-of-state. So that's a great number of our students choosing to go on. We also have 6 of our students that have made arrangements to enter military service following high school. More specifically, locally, because we have a close connection with St. Bonaventure and JCC, 8 of our seniors will be heading to St. Bonaventure to further their studies, and 30 of our seniors are planning to start at Jamestown Community College. So that's a great thing for the community. And lastly, I would just like to mention a little bit about the scholarships. That it's a big time right now in the guidance office with scholarships. I was able to talk to the Cattaraugus Region Community Foundation recently, and they indicated that 42 of our seniors took advantage of the application process through them. Many of those students applied for multiple scholarships through there, some as many as 6 or 7 different scholarships that they might have applied. CRCF does a really nice job with creating a common application so that that application can be used across the board. And in addition to that, Olean High School Guidance Office houses roughly 24 scholarships, and most of those decisions will be made within the next couple of weeks, or at the latest the second week of June, so that we have time to get everything to graduation bulletin at that time. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Nice job. Thank
That's
you.
good. Good to
Thank
know
you.
all
Very
that.
important.
Thanks very much.
Next, we have an update on our DEI work.
This is a standing agenda item, just to make sure that everyone is aware of the progress that we're making. We have a meeting that's coming up. We have a policy that's going into place. We have staff members who are getting to know the framework because we've adopted the framework as being our guiding work in our DEI. And that's the framework from the state that we're using to help guide what we're doing, and keeping an eye on, and we've heard this earlier this evening as well, that we have equity throughout the district. So we don't have haves and have-nots, that we don't have anything that's set up in a way that inherently that happens. So as our eyes are more open to it, and it's not just at the board level or the administrators, it's all throughout our district that we'll have a more inclusive school district. So there's a meeting coming up, and everyone in the work group will be breaking up into smaller groups, looking at pieces of the framework, taking the information from the last meeting and from the speaker that we had, who was an equity officer in, I believe that was his title, in Salamanca schools, And we'll be using all of that information in making some recommendations that will be brought to the board at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our tabs report.
Okay, we held a TABS meeting 3 weeks ago, I believe it was. And we are meeting again next Wednesday and then the Wednesday following. It was a smaller group at this last meeting, and so we actually were able to kind of narrow down exactly what we want to do. We are currently working on an employee recognition award to creating the award and deciding what criteria we'll use, what we're going to name the award, what the award will actually be, when it'll be given out. And that award will be something that'll move forward multiple years on, hopefully. So we initially, when we came to the board, I believe it was the last month's meeting, maybe April, I discussed how the board was tasking us with this, as our mission. And we talked about having that award be something that we would give out at our June board meeting. Since then, we spoke at the last meeting that we are going to have other things going on in June. We'll be celebrating quite a few retirements. And Dr. Gielan mentioned that we will be celebrating those retirements with not just this year's retirees, but past year's retirees to catch up on the years that we haven't been able to celebrate. So with that being said, we don't want to overshadow our wonderful retirees. So we are going to move that employee recognition, and we hope to actually create the portal that people will go into to submit their recommendations for these employees and have that up and running hopefully by the beginning of June, so that we can actually get those started. And then hopefully we would be able to vote on who that employee would be and recognize them at the kickoff to the beginning of the year. So that would be actually in our first staff day. And that might be something going forward we could continue to do. It's a good time of year to really motivate people and make people excited and remind people of all the good things that happened the year prior. So that is what we're working on. Our smaller group that met at the last meeting, we intend to meet again, like I said, next week. And then hopefully we will have our bigger group meeting the week after at the original meeting time, and we'll be able to provide all the details on what we worked on and just get some feedback and present it back to the board. That's what we're up to.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you have any questions for Kelly at this point?
So our next meeting is May 11th and then May 18th. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, at this point then, we come to the public comment section of our agenda. I'm going to go ahead and read the instructions here. The public is invited to speak about items on the agenda. The Board of Education is allotted 15 minutes for public comment. Each individual can speak for 3 minutes. The board can vote to increase the 15-minute maximum if it wishes. The following are not permitted: comments that involve personalities, comments about the performance or conduct of individual staff members, comments about specific and/or confidential student-related issues. Individuals may request to have an item for discussion placed on the agenda. The request should be submitted in writing to the district clerk, Mrs. Irizarry, no later than noon on a Wednesday prior to each meeting. Just to clarify, when we say that comments that involve personalities, we mean, and especially right now during the election, that the comments are not to involve individual persons. This is not a venue for endorsement of candidates or campaigning of any sort. This is just about the board's work. So we did have 2 people sign up ahead of time. Leo Walters Tahira, if you want to come up and speak.
I'm not used to speaking so early. That's being cursed with the W last name is really giving me time to like sit there and digest, you know? We are old friends at this point, but I just wanted to read you guys a couple statistics that I thought were really important. And I will be emailing you guys a zip drive with the studies that all of these came from afterwards. So they'll be at your board emails. But 80% of LGBTQ students in rural communities say they frequently heard the word gay used in a negative way. 67% of LGBTQ youth report that they've heard a family member make negative comments about LGBTQ people. LGBTQ young adults had 120% higher risk of reporting homelessness compared to youth who identified as heterosexual and cisgender. And 1 in 30 youth ages 13 to 17 experience a form of homelessness in a 12-month period. Additionally, 77% of LGBTQ youth report receiving unwanted sexual comments, jokes, or gestures in the past year. We're not here to debate my existence. We're not here to debate my right to pee. We're not here to debate anyone else's right to privacy in changing, because every human deserves those rights. They're not up for debate. What is up for debate is the best way that we can create a supportive and beneficial environment that connects students, parents, and families. And the way that we do that is we facilitate tough conversations, and we do that in difficult moments when it might be easier to just have a black or white ruling, but that's not the way the world functions. When it comes to bathrooms, those changes are set in motion. So I don't really want to discuss that now. But when it comes to issues surrounding LGBTQ students and disclosures of information that they make confidentially, I think we have to tread lightly. I think we have to involve the parents when possible, but I think we also need to have a safety plan. Social worker 101 is that before you do anything, you make a safety plan for that client or for, in this case, that student. So what I would propose is a procedural discussion, right? So we have a policy that's going to be set by the board, but I would propose that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee be tossed the task of coming up with procedures that would help in moments where students are disclosing information to people who are faculty and staff. I think that we have an incredibly diverse member of parents from this community as well as former students. And I think the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee would be a fantastic place to have this sort of, you guys create the bones, we create the soft tissue, and then the whole body moves together forward. I think the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee would be a great place for that. I would encourage you once again to think about the fact that we have to always, as a society, be looking for the outliers and taking care of the vulnerable. And in this case, that includes the people who are marginalized by orientation, people who are marginalized by religion, people who are marginalized by class, social static, and otherwise othered. So that's who we need to be looking out for, because when everybody in the community is safe, the whole community is better. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Rob DeFazio.
Rob DeFazio, 457 Indiana Avenue, Olean, New York. On April 19th, I stood up here talking about communications section of the agenda. I have no idea who the person that is listed on there for today, but I hope that he received his mail. Why would that section not be used for what the board wants the community to know and how it will be communicated out to the public? Communication can be done in so many ways, through the agenda, emails, digital displays, etc. Instead, last month it was used to intimidate and embarrass longtime employees while not naming other people of which they were concerned about. Interesting, on today's printed agenda, there was no name or the reason why that person received their mail. Point proven. We're embarking on a crucial vote in the next few weeks. How can one openly ask members of the Olean community to pass a school budget right now, knowing the current state of this district? The astonishing failing rates of over 50% of the student population failing both reading and math brought up at the March Board of Education meeting seems crazy to me. Imagine all of you in your workplace of employment. Imagine if there was female staff members that were penalized unnecessarily, minded for making personal health choices when accommodations were made for men. I'm all for inclusivity. My concern lies with the people deciding who and what needs to be included, because unless you're putting in efforts to make sure every staff member and child feels safe and included in the district, then you just manipulated the definition of discrimination. The reality is that the communication in this district is in fact one-sided. Communication regarding just about every decision is lacking. Is the exact opposite of transparency you indicated this district enacted at the last board meeting. Now imagine you get all again, an example. a situation at a place of employment where the employees meet with their supervisor, an employee follows up with an email confirming what was talked about. The supervisor responds that they will respond back to you, yet a month goes by and there's no follow-up to that original email. It's not only poor communication, it's unprofessional. I'm aware of public records disappearing and the simple "it doesn't exist" being the final answer. Not true. When in fact, many of you know it does. You have a lot going on inside the walls of the schools you call safe. As a board, you have an opportunity to make positive changes, and I hope you do so. Furthermore, why would a district implement a policy that only affects 1 or 2 staff and has impacted district families tremendously in a negative way in the name of liability, yet knowingly break their own policy for others with no intentions of an explanation? Why? Because it's personal. You know, some of you know exactly. Time's up. 10 seconds. The ineptitude and unprofessionalism we've witnessed in this district has been condoned, accepted, and is now the norm. I live in Olean. I'm a taxpayer in this district, and I proudly send my kids to Portville Central School.
Thank you. Now, this week, we're trying something new. We get a sign-up sheet, and I've got 5 people listed on the sign-up sheet to speak about items. I have a couple of people, 4 people talking about policy. So we're gonna try to keep this brief, 3 minutes max. We'll try to get through this real quick. Mary Fay is up first.
Mary Fay from Olean. I'd like to address 2 policies. One being the public comment section on your agenda. There's nothing in education law that says it has to be at any particular place on the agenda. I would like to request consideration of that policy, that public comment be put after commendations, so that if there are any taxpayers, parents, grandparents who would like to speak, that they can during that meeting. I love your forum tonight, where you have allowed those who want to sign up the day of the meeting, because that's another thing I have a concern about. You're asking anyone who wants to speak to let you know the Wednesday before, when the agenda isn't even out for 72 hours. There's nothing, again, in education law that says there should be a 72-hour time frame. The other thing is you're restricting it to the topics on the agenda. And in education law, it says unless there is a good reason to restrict it, it shouldn't be restricted. I can't remember the exact terms in the book. It's not capricious, but it's part of education law that you don't restrict the topics to just the agenda items. So I'd like you to consider that past practice to be discontinued. There's a lot of discussion tonight about reflecting transparency, and I think that would be a huge step in the right direction, that the taxpayers and parents would feel that they have an opportunity to speak on any of the topics that are of concern. Second is the gender identity policy, which you do have on the agenda tonight. Unfortunately, the operations committee meeting wasn't open to the public, even though according to open meetings law, if it is just the board members and district members at the meeting, it is supposed to be under the open meetings law and should have allowed the public. It is your responsibility to protect all students, not just a small percentage. Their safety is of utmost concern to you and should be. I don't think you want it on your conscience if anything were to ever happen. And I would hope that you would be requiring biological males, biological females to each have their own separate bathrooms and locker rooms, and not run into a liability and a horror situation like what happened in Virginia. Also, that you don't bypass the parents. We as parents have given you the authority, delegated our authority to you to educate our students, our children, and to keep them safe. And I don't want you bypassing parental rights with regard to gender identity either. Thank you.
Next up, we have Braden Mandel.
I think it might be this one. Let's see. All right, I was trying.
Hi, my name is Braden Mandel, but I go by Milo. I am a non-binary student here at Olean High. I have a few comments and concerns about the new policy being brought up to you. For one, I think that it is imperative that students are not outed to their parents, as statistics show that when a student is outed, rather than coming out to their parents, there's an increased risk of abuse in the household. Also, I would like to mention that students such as myself and trans students currently have to walk all the way down to the basement in order to use the restroom, sometimes multiple times a day, and that interrupts our valuable instruction time and interrupts our education experience. I would also like to mention that teachers and staff have the discretion to, when it comes to policies such as name changes, bathroom accommodations, and etc. I know that everyone here is aware of the anti-trans laws being passed around the country, and many gender nonconforming students, such as myself, are wondering, is this a safe place for us to be? I urge the board to send a message to all of our trans students that Olean is a place that will stand by all of its students in the face of adversity. Thank you.
Tim Sherlock, you have some comments about policy as well?
Hi again. Got your timer, Mary?
Yeah.
All right. You're welcome. So really quickly, I did review the gender identity policy and some of the changes that were made in that. I think we're off to a good start and having that dialogue. I do like the idea of having it proposed to the DEI committee and kind of bringing in that group, looking at the verbiage and looking at how that implementation will work. I think we're on track with some of the trends and things that we're seeing coming down from the state in that. So I'm happy with that. I do think there's still a lot of conversation that needs to be had. And really, one of the things is I'm hoping that as the board, you can produce or disseminate some of those statistical pieces and information to abate some of the fears that are surrounding that particular policy. The other thing I wanted to talk about is looking at board policies and bylaws for the board and ensuring that, and this is my personal thing, all board members are present at the meetings. If we're talking about unilateral, keeping everything even, if you're expected here, everybody should be expected here. I have qualms with that personally. You're elected to do a job, you should be sitting in this room along with everybody else. So that was another one of my topics. I do like the new format for the public speaking. I think that's wonderful. It's giving everybody an opportunity, which we need to do. And then looking at the safety component, I do think, and I was looking at, and I don't know if we can look at it further, but how many bathrooms are there in the schools and where are they located? You know, some students have said they have to go down to the basement, and there are some logistical issues there with timing for these students and making sure that, you know, we do have enough, you know, bathrooms for everyone to keep that status quo. And that's really it. That's all I got.
Thank you. I have a couple more. Katie Ward, some comments about the gender ID policy.
Hi, I wanted to thank you first off for your careful ongoing consideration of the gender identity policy. And just to say that it's deeply, deeply needed to protect the students in our district who actually statistically, materially, physically, personally need that kind of protection. And I just want to encourage you to keep gender expansive, gender nonconforming, trans voices at the center of the discussion when you're looking at this. So thank you.
Then we have Ella Catcher, is that right?
Speaking today, but
Make sure you speak nice and loud into the microphone. so we can hear you.
sorry. So I had a classmate who couldn't make it tonight, but she wrote a testimony about one of the candidates for the upcoming election.
This isn't
I
quite the place for providing information about candidates.
awesome. In that case, could I sacrifice my time to Maria Mirza
To talk about
policy?
policy. Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Mirza, and as a Muslim student at Olean High School, I think it's important that we have a board member that is accepting of all members of our community. Policies should be passed to protect the minorities in our school. My siblings and I have been called hateful names like terrorist and been asked if we're going to blow up the school in this exact school building. This is discrimination against us solely because of our religion, and this doesn't just apply to me. This applies to all students of color and the LGBTQ+ community. We need a school board member that will address the problems of marginalized students in our district. It is crucial that we have a school board that acknowledges these problems and works to solve them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to move on to the committee reports. We had an audit and finance committee meeting on April 21st. The minutes are attached to the agenda. We also had an operations committee on April 25th.
Can we back up on that one just one? There was one thing that happened at the Audit and Finance Committee that we wanted to share with the greater board and anyone else who is here, because there have been a lot of questions about the federal funds that we've received and what our plans are. And there was a very nice document that was put together. We stole the idea, but then we made it even better. And my thanks to these two ladies who worked on that quite a bit. And Jen Mahar was very instrumental in bringing that to us to help us understand, because there were a lot of questions about it. Let's start by answering by saying that, yes, we will be spending every single dollar. We have a plan for it. And take it away.
Sure. Mr. Martell, can you bring up the document for me? So first of all, I have to thank Jen Mahar because she's really the architect behind this spreadsheet. And I just like to lump the numbers in. So as all of you know, we've received millions of dollars in federal stimulus money. This plan, the plan that we have to spend these is very, very fluid. It is changing regularly. Every time we have a new situation that comes up, we look at this probably weekly. So the presentation that I'm sharing with you today that I presented, a few weeks ago has changed. This is a summary of all of the federal stimulus funds that we have received. The top portion there in blue, the CARES money, we already spent that. That happened last year. If you recall, that was embedded into our general fund. If we look at the, we'll call it pink or peach color there, the CARISA funds, or sometimes you hear it called CIRSA. Here we go with our acronyms again, right? This is the $2.8 million that we're receiving. On a subsequent page, and Mr. Martell, you don't need to scroll through, I'll just share it with you. These are a lot of the positions, primarily our summer school programs are being funded through this CARISA funding. We have $2.8 million allocated to our district. Thus far, we have expensed just over $1 million of that. That funding, as you'll see, goes from March 13th of 2020 to September 30th of 2023. So a lot of our summer plans will be funded through the CIRSA funding. We have about $1.8 million remaining there. Some of the other things that we are looking to do, or we have already hired, teaching assistants. We have math teaching assistants embedded in our elementary building. A fantastic addition to our staffing. We are looking at various additional positions such as a family engagement coordinator. Our English and our history teachers are funded through this program. We have some Leader in Me initiatives, some capital improvements that we're making. The main electrical switch at this building will be replaced in this funding. So when our electric goes down, there will be no disruption to any of our technology. We are so dependent on technology now. When the electric goes down, if you're in this building, there's probably close to a minute gap there where it's dark and you lose everything. And with a teacher in a 42-minute, period, that can be critical. Even worse, if you're home learning remotely, it's even worse. So we'll be doing some of those improvements, sidewalk repairs, water fountains. How crazy is that? But you know what? They've been a godsend during this time where we could still keep the bottle fillers on. Door replacement. If you've been to what used to be our fitness center, now referred to as our wellness center, if you haven't been there, go there. Any of the students here, you guys have been to the wellness center? We have close to $200,000 worth of new equipment there. Faculty and staff, if you haven't been there, go check it out. Community members, check it out. It's fantastic. Really trying to improve the physical well-being of our students as well. Air conditioning. We will be improving our air conditioning in some of the locations throughout our building, and swipe cards so we have better access to some of our buildings. If we go down to the green shaded area, the ARP or ESSER funding, this is the biggest pot of money that we will be receiving. $6.4 million in funding. We just received approval for this within the last 2 months. So we have not been able to spend as much of this, as you'll see, just shy of $150,000. This is the area that is changing the most. Every time we sit down and talk about this, we talk about different needs that we have throughout the district. We're looking at social workers, behavioral specialists, RTI and intervention specialists, more teaching assistants, primarily at the middle school and the high school. Occupational therapy and occupational therapy assistants. One thing that we've seen with our youngest learners is the fact that they didn't have that time in the school. We're seeing that we have to really get caught up on some of the related services that we provide. Speech therapists, school counselor, school psychologists. We're looking for some building level substitutes. Unfortunately, we're seeing the same issues that everybody has seen. A huge lack of individuals available to do substitute work. We are looking at some additional capital upgrades in this building or in this funding as well. We recently hired an HVAC technician, which has been a huge improvement to the district, really looking at a lot of more preventative work being done, particularly with air handlers and whatnot. Wireless access points, so increasing our technology. The more and more we use technology, we need to make sure that our infrastructure is very solid. So lots of technology improvement. Air handling upgrades, particularly at the OIMS library, the gymnasium at Eastview and the music suite in Eastview. Uninterrupted power supply to our district server rooms. Again, making sure that that technology is ready when we need it. If we go down to the next area, the ARP HCY. This is some homeless funding that we received. This is a new pot of money that was made available to us. And what we're going to do here is provide some resources to our families who have experienced homelessness recently. This year, we've probably seen more of that than ever. So providing some resources to them. Sometimes it's just simple things like some shampoo. Sometimes it's clothing. Sometimes it's individuals that we need to go out and sit down and meet with them. It may be meeting them at the local hotel that they're staying at and talking about what resources do you need, connecting you to, say, some public housing or whatnot. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it can have a huge impact. And then the last group that we have here is our IDA ARP funding. So what we're looking at here is some special education intervention specialists. This is an area that is changing as we meet every day. We're looking at not only the special education needs of our students, but more of the RTI process and what can we do to prevent more students from getting to that point where they have to be classified. So looking at hiring some individuals to help us identify what needs to be done before students get to that level. And obviously with not having the full-time education or our kids in the building full-time the last few years, those numbers, as you can expect, are higher than we've seen before. So that's a real quick synopsis. Jen, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
Just emphasize that, as you said, it is fluid. And so as we're reviewing these and trying to provide as many supports as we can through positions that will be helpful for students and for impacting learning loss, that as we need to make any adjustments to as we uncover ways to better use that money, we'll be making those changes so that we can be sure to utilize all of the funding available.
So you guys all have this document. It was sent out with the agenda for the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, I believe. I can send it out again if that's easier so everybody has it.
Thank you. And it's also just letting everyone know that each and every one of these funding sources comes with a particular set of guidelines. We're following those guidelines. There's also a set aside. There's a local maintenance effort that has to be done with some of them too. And we're just following all those guidelines and utilizing it to the best of our ability. So thank you, ladies. Appreciate that.
And some of those we literally just got approved.
Correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, you can't spend the money.
Right,
So you
right.
have to
And
be approved.
you notice the timeline. Some of them are here until 2024, and that's part of the plan. So just because we
Exactly.
haven't expended it yet, doesn't mean we won't.
But
Yep.
that has been a question of the board, has been a question of our Audit and Finance Committee, that we make sure we get that money spent.
Yep.
I think Jenny can attest to the fact that we've said it over and over and over again until finally has a nice report now for us.
Yeah.
To shut us up.
Yep. And my thanks to Jen Mahar for really putting this all together for us in a nice summary document so I could spend the money on things.
Yeah, it looks like it could be easily updated.
It sure can.
We look forward to those updates.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for all your effort on leveraging.
I had one comment about non-resident tuition. And I just want to commend the Audit and Finance Committee because for the first time in 8 years, fellow board members and the superintendent actually listened. I'm encouraged that this issue will be brought up again in October. As I said earlier, progress is slow and incremental, but we're getting there, even though it takes a long time.
All right, we're gonna move on to the Operations Committee, which was held April 21st. There was great discussion there about a couple of policies we're gonna talk more about tonight. Minutes are attached to the agenda. Ira, was there anything else you wanted to comment on there?
No, but thank you. It was a long conversational meeting.
Paul, did you have a question?
No, just a comment. I wasn't at that meeting, but I've read the minutes and I want to commend the Operations Committee for really looking at the policies that are going to come up later. And they will be brought up for further discussion at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, then we had a Buildings and Grounds Committee on April 26th. Any highlights you want to touch on there, Jim?
I'm looking forward to the results of our core samples out of our field, which will probably be at our next meeting. Once again, congratulations to our HVAC technician, which we need for a lot a lot of PMs. At the request of Mr. Hesney, we are revisiting our solar power projects potentially, see what the pros and cons are. So I look forward to engaging in the conversation and see what can be done in a small city school district with limited space. Aside from that, we have a meeting coming up next week.
Thank you. Any questions for Jim? Any comments about the buildings and grounds?
Well, we're waiting for that report.
Yes, we are.
Next up, we have our board report. I'm going to keep this brief. Last week, we met with our search consultants and they brought us a slate of candidates. So we are super excited about that. We are in the process of scheduling interviews. They will be coming up soon. That's it for me. Anybody else for anything for the board? All right, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Gielan for the superintendent's report.
And how can you top that report? That's good news for the district. Before I get into the things that I have on my report, I do want to make just one comment that there are 8 laboratories in this building alone that are single use on various floors throughout the building. So I'll be connecting with Mr. Andriano and making sure that our students are fully aware of those laboratories, where they are, and the fact that they are certainly welcome to use them. COVID-19 cases are on the rise, and that's both students and staff members in the last couple of days, and we were notified of quite a few of them today. So because of that, a message went out to families that families can obtain more testing kits. All they have to do is call the school office. And if you hear of anyone who's in need of them, because sometimes it's hard for parents to distinguish between the seasonal things that are going around and those symptoms. So we do have them and they're available for our families. Friday is Night at the Races. That's that major fundraiser of the Olean City School District Foundation. My thanks to everyone who's worked so hard for that, and I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I hope I get to see a lot of you there. The New York State Public High School Athletic Association, that's that NISSA that I mentioned at the last meeting. The officers unanimously voted in favor of placing a moratorium on the prohibition of hair adornments until its members systematically address this topic and concerns. They are looking into it. They recognize that it's been in place for about 20 years or so without going back and looking at what are those reasons in time. Has it changed? Should it be different for different sports? Those are the kinds of questions that they're looking into. But right now, they have made the emergency, they can make decisions on emergency matters, and they have. So I'll let you know as soon as I hear more about that, but they are looking into it. And I know we have a lot of students who are grateful about that. Wanted to mention and thank Dr. Salzman for all of your work with our school district. And the first couple of weeks in May, Dr. Salzman will still be working with us, but then Dr. Matt has agreed to be our physician. So we're working on some scheduling right now to get some meeting going on with all various staff members in that introduction, and having, I anticipate, a very smooth transition from one physician to the next. And also through Section 6, let's go back to sports for just a moment, that the membership, meaning all the districts in Section 6, overwhelmingly supported the changes to the appeal process. So there will be a change to the appeal process coming up. I believe it starts in the next school year. And that was 61 yes votes, 6 no, and 7 abstentions. So that was overwhelming support. And I'm happy to say that doesn't get enacted very often, but to see these changes to their whole appeals process when there are issues, very good thing. Small City School District Association. Okay, so this group, New York State Association of Small City School Districts, we do belong to that group. That group is also very instrumental. Because we've worked together with other small city school districts, we have a lobbying voice in Albany, which is very, very helpful for the unique situations that small city school districts find themselves in, financially and, well, certainly economically, but especially when it comes to our funding from the state and how they do state aid formulas, and it's an equity in of itself. Anyway, I would like the board to consider continuing with that membership for next year. Something will be coming forth for your consideration probably at the next meeting. And I also thank our board members who sat in on the last meeting that we had and just bringing up issues before we meet with the commissioner. So that was very helpful to see that we had Olean City School District board members in and being a part of that, participating in it. So thank you. The 3 through 8 math assessments. How could I do a report without talking about that? Congratulations and my thanks to everyone in the district who helped to make that a very, very smooth, successful, and I am going to say to Jen Mahar again for your help in getting everything organized. Again, we're going to be looking to going from the paper and pencil, moving over into the computer-based testing. We have the capacity, we have the experience with it, so we're looking to do that in the future. But one of the other things I just wanted to make sure you knew that we did, we contracted out for scoring rather than, because we heard about substitutes. It's very difficult when all of our teachers are out for scoring and you're not even scoring your own students' exams anymore. And it's not the same kind of experience it used to be. Our teachers want to be in the classroom with students. So we are trying this year. We also did it because we were on break during one of the scoring periods, but it's a good time to try it out. We'll be looking for the feedback from our teachers and from our administrators to see if this is a viable option in the future. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Gill?
I just had one question. Dr. Keelan, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask you to address this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So we changed our public expression policy back in January, and it no longer says that it has to be something on the agenda. So for the people that are misinterpreting our policy, I just like to make that clear to our public that no longer does it say that it has to be something on
It
the
does not.
agenda.
You're correct. It does say that you, and we do stick within those guidelines of making sure we're not talking about
The
students
guidelines
and
are the
staff.
same. Comments,
They're the same.
specific, confidential, student-related issues, performance, use of an individual staff member's name. It no longer says that it has to be something that is on our agenda. We just would like to know that you'd like to speak by Wednesday so that we are aware, so that we can do the business of.
That's correct. And I think what you'll see in trying this new process out, and I thank everyone for trying it. Those who sign up ahead of time are guaranteed that time and within the 15 minutes time, and then we accommodate as many speakers as we can.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a small group today, so.
It was a small group today, yes.
Hear from everybody, but we may need to.
But I just want everyone to be aware of the fact that you do not need to know what's on the agenda in order to come and speak to the board. We changed that policy in January.
So I think what we just need to update.
It needs to be changed on here. On what
On the
it-
agenda
what-
itself.
On what it says in board docs. But if you are reading our policies and you're aware of our policies, you would know that our policy states that. Thank you. I want to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay. For Dr. Gill, let's move on to the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Janine? Any discussion on the consent? Favor?
All right.
Abstentions? None. We have a resolution amendment for OTA district. Update.
That's correct. That's the only change.
need a motion for that.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those. Vote. All right, we're looking to create teaching assistant.
So moved.
Second.
Provides funds. Any discussion on this?
Just keep in mind, it's capped out till 2024, so there's no expectations after that.
Just to update us, though, how many total teaching assistant positions have we now created?
I think we already have 4. This would make 7. Oh, we have 5.
We have 5.
And we have one already.
We already had one. We have
Four.
4 and now we're talking
4
about.
in the Carissa and now.
Yep, okay, yep.
So we're looking at a total of 8 teaching assistant positions, which will be funded starting in September. June of 2020.
We've had for years. 4 we already hired through Carissa funds. They've been hired. One year. Summer.
So we will have a total of 8
Total of 8.
positions in the fall.
Yep.
We hope.
That's correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Next, we have a MOA. with- Really good.
So moved.
Byron?
I will second.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks for all the work to get to this point.
Thanks for all
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any discussion?
This is obviously a part-time position. It's filled by staff member who's already on.
This is correct.
Just to clarify this. And otherwise, I'm good.
We've had CPI trainers before and they train CPI. It's not as if it's a separate position with a job description. There are turnkey trainers.
I guess, I mean,
Tell us what CPI is.
I mean,
Sure.
I see
Even
what
though
it is
we
here,
know, but.
I'm just wondering if they're like a training they go
The
through. to be
AB.
the
Oh, yes, they do.
trainer. I mean,
Yes.
I mean,
It's a very extensive training program they have to go through. And then you have to continue and update your training to be the turnkey trainer for the district. Long ago, we went through BOCES and there were people in BOCES who were CPI trainers. Then as they went out of the CPI trainer business, then school districts would look to have turnkey trainers who were in-house. And it's critical to have this kind of training, crisis prevention, intervention, especially with anyone who is working with our students with disabilities, but it's very good for de-escalation. It's very good for just for being able to recognize when a crisis is starting to occur and to be able to intervene correctly. If you do the wrong things, say the wrong things, you can have horrific outcomes. So it's important to us that we have well-trained people who can turn around and train at a regular basis our staff as we
And
get
so
new
when
staff
do we
members
do
too.
these Regular training done? When does the other staff get trained?
Various times throughout the year. Some training is set up in the summertime.
Okay.
What I understand is we do have other trainings throughout the year. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I know Jen Class isn't here. She would be the one I'm looking at. But I don't know, Jen, do you know offhand?
Yeah, like a professional development day or something?
We've done that.
I know I trained a while ago,
Proposed
but-
a schedule for us for monthly trainings as well. Unfortunately, a lot of that's gonna be dependent on who's available when, after school and whatnot, so.
Okay.
Position, or do we only have one, or do we have nobody yet and we have to get them trained?
You have to be trained to be the trainer, and then we'll do as we do with any other position. We'll post it and we'll do that posting and then hire, and we'll, if we don't have enough people, then we'll go out and start asking people very nicely if they'll do it.
So we don't
Yes.
have.
I just want to add that CPI training is good and has not only professional benefits, but also some personal benefits as well. It's good stuff.
We definitely see the value in it, in the professional. level.
Is there any tie-in here with restorative justice and the principles of restorative justice? Because this is something that cyclically comes up and then it goes away. And, you know, I'm just wondering if how expand this whole idea to include the principles of restorative justice, which I think we can all endorse, but we never seem to quite get there.
To answer your question, no, this is not the same as restorative justice. This is very specific training. And not to say that we're dropping restorative justice, but this particular agreement is just for the trainer for CPI.
Okay.
With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Then we have an MOA with the OTA for the Envirothon Club.
So moved.
Go Kelly and Ira. Kelly? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Next, we are looking for an MOA for the JV volleyball. team.
So moved.
Paul? Jim, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Next up, we have an MOA for a TOSA, tech integration specialist. Aaron? Any discussion?
Yeah, so we just want to make sure, so we usually approve all of our TOSAs at the beginning of the year in our reorganizational meeting, and somehow this one didn't get approved, is that correct?
That is correct. It does not mean the person has not been doing the job and working in it. I just want to recognize and thank our leadership in the OTA for, working with us to get on the right track with some things that may have gotten missed, and working together with some of these other things that are new. It's very appreciated that we have that kind of that we share the same vision in getting things done. And this shows it on this agenda that there've been a lot of agreements lately, and I thank them.
Yes, yes, and I do too, and I certainly didn't mean anything by that. I just wanted to make sure that, we're aware that, this is anything new.
Yeah,
This-
I have the
we've
same
been-
question.
Yes, we've been doing this. I'm just not sure how, and why, but, the person does a fantastic job. So, yes, we thank him. So, thank
And
you.
he's been doing it for a long
For a
time.
long time, yes, so.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are looking to approve overnight trip for the Liberty Partnership.
So, I'll second.
Jim's on that. Mary, thank you. Any discussion?
wish I
This
could
has
go.
been a great
Yeah.
program.
Looks great.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? We have the fire inspection reports. Okay,
Second.
thank you, Paul. Discussion on that.
So we didn't see the report. Do you usually see them? I feel like I.
We had to make some corrections, right? Is that correct, to get the reports?
I don't know.
Yes, we
That's what
had
I mean.
multiple walkthroughs to get.
We did up until the very last moment. But everything passed. We have our certificates. We're all ready to go. You want copies of all of those?
Well, usually we see them. Yeah, we usually see the reports.
Okay.
Of the walkthrough, so we can see what. Because we don't have enough to read, so we'd like more, please.
I can feed
Be
that
like
need.
Oliver,
More reading.
or please. So yeah, that would be great, just so we can. Kind of just go through it.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, I'm gonna take the vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? All right. Next, we are planning for vets, so we're gonna look to approve the rental agreement for the pavilion.
So moved.
Thank you, Paul.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. Any discussion?
Tell us what this fun day is.
Aren't you going?
I have no idea
Oh,
what it is.
good enough then.
This is for the elementary students. They do this annually. Not sure if it's happened in the last 2 years, but
And parents are included.
On May 14th?
Well,
I have no idea what this is.
it isn't. Who is it?
all right.
I thought it was.
I don't have the details of what it's used for. I just have the details of the agreement itself. And what was important to me was that there's no fee,
No fee.
and we're appreciative of the fact that they're giving it to us gratis.
It's a Saturday, isn't it? May 14th?
Next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I don't know what this is for. I know we do like the popsicles in the park, but that's usually not at Warbeck's. And that's in the summer.
Yeah, this is athletics. I thought it came from there, but I,
Oh,
Never mind. It's
Wasn't
not the
sure.
elementary. schools.
sorry about that
All
then.
right. I don't know what it is either, but it's
Gonna be a fun day,
a
no
really
matter what.
discounted
That'd be
rental
great.
rate, so
Thank
we'll
you, City of Olean.
let's accept the rental rate. All right, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we'll find out what it is. Let-
Now that we've approved it, we should know what it is.
Okay,
Just about anything, Paul. Yeah,
okay, we've got some special board meetings coming up to start the interview process for our next superintendent. Can I get a motion to approve those dates?
so moved.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Julio. Any discussion?
The dates are somewhat flexible. I mean, in that we may not need all of those times.
And we may need another
And we
Yeah.
may need more.
I thought we had a, I
I
thought we had a Wednesday, the
Yeah.
25th on
I
here
think
too.
we
Yeah.
should add the
I
25th
think,
on
I
here.
think we're missing one.
I thought we tentatively
I
agreed to
thought
that.
you were gonna wait until
No.
the
We
18th.
could wait until after the next week.
Then you'd add it on.
Well,
Yeah. we can-
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we've got a
That
meeting on
was
the
your plan.
18th. We can add one on. Yes.
Available for these meetings or no?
That's a good question.
That is a good
Not on the
question.
No,
19th.
I would say no immediately.
Do we all have to be present for that also?
Do we have what?
Do we all have to be present or does whoever elected?
I believe we'd be asking them to come in on the 18th.
That special board meeting.
Right, to our regular board meeting.
Take the oath on the 18th and then join everyone for the meetings that happen after that date. It's a great question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Thank you.
As part of these meetings too, do we need to approve whether or not they're gonna be held fully in person or if there will be a Zoom option for these since they are interviews? I would assume that that needs to be written in this, whether or not we're.
This is just establishing the dates. The, when they're posted, we'll show the location and then how that's going to be, if it's all in person, or if there is both an in-person and Zoom ability.
I mean, since we don't have
Yes.
a meeting before this, though, do we need to make that decision? As a
Oh, for the
board,
9th
or
and
is that?
Yeah,
a-
for the 9th
I
and
mean,
10th.
Is our board making that decision?
Are you
is that-
deciding? How are we doing that?
I mean, we should decide whether it's going to be possible technologically to make it. And I'm not sure that any option but attending in person is going to be possible.
I mean, I would think we need to make that clear,
Yeah.
before we, as we're setting the meeting dates, that should be clear now rather than,
Yeah,
I
agree.
I would recommend.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
I
think
agree.
We should be held fully in person.
Agreed.
I have said before, and I will say again, that I am likely to be out of town for one or more of these dates for personal reasons. If I am excluded because I cannot Zoom, so be it. That's your decision to make. I would just feel bad about that and not being able to contribute fully. Technologically, it should be possible.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Let's let our executive team figure that out.
All right, yeah, we'll look into it and follow up.
Yeah.
And then when
Okey-dokey.
the meeting announcement comes out, it'll say.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
For baseball senior night.
Okay, War Vets Park Pavilion is being used for baseball senior night. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you
Oh,
looking into that for
baseball
us.
senior night.
Has
Oh,
nothing to do with the
okay.
elementary school.
There we go. All right.
Hi.
But
Okay,
it's still free.
but, I mean, it'd be fun. I think. Good. All right, next up, we have a tenure date extension for Kelly Mahar. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion?
I do. I'm questioning, I mean, I understand why the dates are being moved. If, the individual wasn't at work on these dates. But as a board, I'm not sure why we're voting on this. We didn't vote for the leave of absence to begin with, so why we're voting on this, I don't know. And I don't think that we should be voting on it. We didn't vote. Absence happened.
So when there needs to be an amendment to someone's probationary status or their appointment, their higher appointment dates, then it is brought to the board as a resolution. It has nothing to do with any reasoning why or anything behind it, except it's just reflecting that there is a change in dates based upon an unpaid leave.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstention? Want a nay or aye?
Nay.
Abstentions? All right, we have a retirement resignation of Karen Griffin with deep regret.
So moved.
Ira,
Thank you, Ira.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. Any discussion on this one?
She'll be missed.
Another, I mean, seriously, what are we going to do?
Another big
I am gonna
loss
miss
for the
her
district.
more than I can
You
even.
know,
I
you don't have to
call
tell us,
that
we know.
woman multiple times a month, and
Beautiful
she
person.
is quite honestly maybe my favorite person. I
And
think
we won't
she
take that
might be,
personally.
no, don't take it personally. I think she might be my favorite employee. She is wonderful. She is so helpful, and I will really, really miss her. I hope she would be there through my
Oh,
entire time that I
no.
had to be at East School, and I'm very sad to see her go.
But we wish her well,
Absolutely.
you know, I'm gonna enjoy some time with family and all that good stuff.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have a teacher aide retirement with deep regret, Shirley Russell. So moved. Yeah,
I'll second.
thank you, Mary. That is a great loss, but we wish her well.
I will also miss her.
I
We
have
get
a question concerning this retirement, but we'll bring it up in executive session.
Okay, any other comments on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have a teacher aide retirement with deep regret of Brenda Lyons.
So move.
Thank you, Mary.
Second.
Thank you.
And so we'll just round out the trio with how much we are definitely going to miss them. Miss Brenda was Lily's first little teacher when she was 3 over at Montessori before she came over to Eastview. So we have loved her always and will continue to. So we wish her and Miss Russell some, great times here in retirement, that's for sure. So we'll miss them.
Absolutely. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to discussion items, we have a second of our regular board meetings policy. There was not a lot of discussion last time. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Paul, thank you. Second,
Second.
Lyra. Any discussion on this?
Nope, not this one.
All right. Being none, we're gonna take the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Title IX sex discrimination policy. This is the second reading. At this time, I would say we are not ready to discussing the operation. This one's going to need a third reading.
So it's on here only as a discussion item because of that. And I know that things have already gone out to that committee. We're looking at a few different things. One is the redundancy with some other policies and how that might cause confusion to those who are hired to carry out the policy, but also those who the policies are supposed to serve. So we're getting some good guidance, we hope, on how to pare it down, but also make sure it's in the right place. We don't want to have more than we necessarily need, but we also want to be very clear on, because anyone who needs to enact these policies, there is an issue. So we want everyone to know how to go forward with those issues. So we'll be talking about it again at our next operations and getting some clearer guidance from some experts in the field on this particular policy to help guide us through it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Discussion on that? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the second reading of this policy.
Motion to approve.
I'd second that.
Thank you, Janine. Any discussion?
I think we've all had a chance to review it, and the policy does seem to be good to go, fair and equitable, and personally, I have no problems with it.
And with all our policies, with the understanding that, they will change. So if you find something that needs to be looked at. Yeah. I mean, I think you're gonna see this evolving. Okay.
Well, I think that that's true with all policies. You make a very good point,
It is
Mary,
with all the policies.
that none of these policies is set in stone.
No, we're not gonna just pass
You
a
know,
policy and
they're-
then that's it. It's like a rock.
They're
over on the
living,
beach.
breathing documents,
Fluid,
fluid.
like
Good.
that term.
All right. There's nothing else on the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion's carried. Next up, we have student gender identity, the second reading of that. There was a discussion about that one in operations as well, so there was a change, there's been some changes. So
There was an alternate policy that Dr. Gillen sent to us later today. That arose from discussion in operations. There's one on that alternate policy. I just point out that the language is here, but the subheadings might not be correct. What concept was that we pulled some of the language out. The idea would be that the district would engage the student and the parent in a conversation to create a plan. This is any student that thinks they would want to consistently express a different gender than their and that plan would cover all the things that were brought up in the policy. The plan would cover pronouns and names and restrooms and locker rooms and the child's desire to engage in sports. That whole plan would be made before the child would then, the plan would be kind of recognized by the school, and adopted by the school. And so I thought that we were going to pull that out. Right now it is under a subsection called records. And maybe call it something that distinguishes it, like.
From names and pronouns, is that the section you're talking about? I'm all about it.
Am I getting it wrong? I'm looking at the alternative one.
Okay, I gotta pull up the alternative one, because I just got it.
So that part of it doesn't have a subheading.
Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
That's all, and it got reorganized, but no
Oh.
subheading got
Oh,
attached.
sorry.
So
Okay.
individual student plan.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. Something like that, that would separate it out from records, because it's not really, that the records portion is the first 4 paragraphs of that alternative plan under records. And then really that next paragraph, which starts with when apprised of a student's transgender or GNC status, the district will engage the student and their parents.
So, but not use names and pronouns, think of something.
No,
a
no,
different
no, it's
heading?
just that the way that it was originally there,
Yeah.
that pronouns, the only thing the plan would address would be names and pronouns.
Right, we want to make
And
sure
we
that
said
that's
the
not
plan would
true.
address everything.
Yes.
And so we wanted to make that language more general and give it its own kind of subheading. And that's the only thing that's missing here is that
I felt
Yeah.
that too. I felt like, in fact, I had to look for it for a second when I was.
Yes, exactly, me too.
Because I knew we thought we were going to move it up here.
So these are two, it's the same policy, but this is one that you had today, a new one that we saw, the one that's printed here, and then the one that we got in our agenda
Is the one that we
that
worked
we
on.
worked up. So they're two different, it's the same policy, but it's.
Alternate, it's just an alternate plan.
So I think we need to sit down.
Well,
in the
it's
operations,
abbreviated.
right?
Let's be clear. It's not a completely different policy.
Right.
And part of the conversation we had was on the essence of the policy. In fact, that was a big part of a lot of our policy discussions, even when we were talking about the very lengthy Title IX policy.
Yes.
Is what's necessary and sufficient in a policy, because the policy is the what. The how and the who is all part of the regulations and procedures that a district puts into place to make the policies happen. So the policy statement itself is a very powerful thing that a Board of Education is doing, but we don't have to get into all of the critical details about it. And then what came out of the conversation, please correct me if I say anything wrong here, but the main crux of it was that a plan will be made for each individual student. And the
that was the
plan would
key.
get
Yeah.
into each of those things. So this was just, if that other policy was just taking
much.
people too far into the weeds
Too
on
much.
things, that this would be a policy statement that was reflective of, in essence, what do we guarantee that the district is going to do in these situations?
And what the district has been doing.
And has been doing.
So I want to make that clear, what the district has been doing. And the fact that every situation should be looked at individually. We're not just putting everybody in a box and saying, this is what it is. Everybody needs to be treated individually. And we look at the plan that's best for that child. And that's what I got out of the conversation. that we-
Basically, we're gonna create it.
Oh, no acronyms, please.
No, I don't even know what that means. No.
Well, let's.
Because we're gonna have one.
No, you're missing the point.
We're not creating the plan in this policy.
We're not creating, we're just
saying
creating a policy that will,
plan can be made,
yes, and a plan should be made individually for each child. We need to look at them, and that's what we're doing. Anyway, I mean, if you think we're not doing this, this is what we're doing. Well, we need to do a better job, but this is what we're doing, so.
No, it's not a single uniform.
It's not a single plan.
Stating that if somebody comes forward saying that they need a plan, they
Identify.
some sort of. That went
Right.
The best suit that.
We need to
child. And if
respect the
that
students.
danger isn't there and doesn't exist, then the plan will be made with the whole family to approve. So
Families.
I think that the point is that a plan will be made based on this situation.
Yes.
Not every situation.
But we're not gonna call it.
No, let's not call that. Yeah.
You like, I'm sorry.
So since the operation, would it be referred back to the DEI committee for them to plan or the policy and then have back to operations?
It hasn't been the way of the normal course of business that we have a work group, work, doing the work of the board, where the board is, one
But
of your,
this- yeah.
the major function is to hire a superintendent, and then the second greatest function is for developing policy and setting policy.
Yes.
Ideas?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with Julio. I think that that social media policy that we struggled with was really improved by getting input from the teachers and staff. I mean, it broke the impasse. It's like, what do we do with this very difficult policy? And it was very helpful to me in making those decisions to have input from stakeholders. And I feel the same about this one. It's a real, I mean, I think the general idea, the concept is here. But what are those, what are the details? And for me, again, the real critical one is maybe there are exceptional circumstances when the safety of a child trumps the need to tell parents. But I just feel like this is such a significant decision for a child to make outside of the family context, that should be the exception and not the rule. That, this is not a trivial undertaking when somebody decides that they're going to address a gender. And part of taking that seriously reaches out to the family so that it is a supported decision. And it's not a decision where the family feels like the school is deceiving them about something that's super important about their child. And so, but what are the details of that? That's tough. That's really tough. And I think that DEI committee might be a good group to start to talk about, give us guidance on where that carve out might be, or what those plans really look like, or who's part of the conversation. How does the whole process get started? I think we're in the dark a bit. I don't want to make important policy in the dark. So I don't know. I'm not running again, so maybe this is all moot point for me, but certainly if you look at the social media policy as an example, we struggled with that for months and months and months. Finally made progress when we reached out to other stakeholders.
Let's not forget what our public speakers said this evening with regard to this policy, including courageous student. We ready to call the question?
DEI committee to review this and then send a representative to an office to give us their on it?
Well, I think I have a couple of thoughts about this. One is we have to be very clear, and I am going to be asking you to be very clear on what we want them to look at. Remember the DEI committee or work group that we have working on right now, they're looking at all aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion, this being connected for sure. But to just bring this and say the board is looking for your input and guidance, which is what I'm hearing you say right now, I think we need to be very specific on what you're looking for from this work group who have not been engaged in writing policy before. So, and I want to be really clear on, is it necessarily how we're going to carry the policy out and what we're going to do with it?
We're careful about the terminology.
And my friends and family.
Second part. Why- why-
And that was only in there because it said that we've engaged with the parents to put together an individual plan for that student.
That's why I'm just suggesting.
Yeah.
Any considerations or guiding decisions.
So would you be suggesting then that we create the policy as the board and then offer it as a policy to the DEI committee to help the district to create the procedure? Because I mean, we all know sitting here at this table that we as board don't create the procedure. We only create the policy. So we would create a policy and then allow the DEI committee to figure out how to help to make that. Would that be?
The terminology is technically correct.
So, yeah, so that social media policy, that did kind of take us off the rails there a little bit. By doing that, I'm not sure. I'll just be honest, I'm not sure. But I do see where Dr. Dean is, I do see what she is saying. We are the ones that are supposed to be making the policies. So, we can offer it here, there, and everywhere, but the bottom line is it needs to come back to us. So if we indeed say this is an important policy, and I say that it definitely is, if we want the DEI work group to take a look at it, then we need to be specific with what we want them to look at. So for example, like some of this about the records are the records. But if there's other parts that we want them, I'm not sure what.
So
I kind of like the policy, but I've had an opportunity to work on it. So I don't know if I'm necessarily ready to say yes, but I mean, I think we were trying to move in the right direction with it. I don't want to lose sight of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say too as well. So.
My suggestion would be that we send it back down to operations one more time. With that being said, and it's close, I think we're close. With that being said, I would not discount input from, what are we missing?
Yeah.
Or is there anything that's
What
incorrect?
input do we?
Yeah, on the policy as it is now. It can take those.
Taking some stuff out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've made some adjustments to it already in the operations committee. And I think we could certainly welcome the input of the DEI committee on this policy as it is now and go through it one more time in operations.
Can we ask then that somebody, gets back to you, Dr. Gielan, with what the policy might be missing or what we could focus on in operations, and then we can. look
I'm
at
on
that.
both the work group and the committee.
So you can bring that back
So
to us
I'll
and
be happy to.
Tell us what's
Yeah,
missing.
and I think that's a good idea in asking for that input. Now, I think this discussion has helped me or helped direct me a little bit more about what we'd be asking them to do. So it
I mean,
didn't
I think that the real point is.
get off the
we need
rails.
To create the policy, and then the DEI committee needs to be part of creating surrounding policy. And I think the one thing, sorry, Julia, the one thing I think that's different about this policy and the policy and why we went to the teachers bargaining unit. To make that policy also work with the so, I mean, this is totally new.
Well, and in the spirit, not to get too far off the subject, but in the spirit of the fluidity of policies, hang on, because we have some very good recommendations for updating that policy 6460 as well. So that'll be coming up in the next agenda. They evolve, they reflect our needs, and you know, with that kind of input, that's what happens. That's good.
I know with the board we set policy, but far too many times I see policies being set that we don't take into account who it's actually affecting, because you can't see it most of the time. You don't have to deal with it most of the time. This auditorium, you guys can walk down this aisle every day with no problem. I'm scared to death to go down this thing, but somebody set it in motion for this to be like this. So I just want to take all different kinds of perspectives into account when doing something like this. So that's why I'm coming from.
Yeah, and that's why we like having you on this board. But because that's what we should be doing, you know, not just saying, yep, looks good, yep, looks good. We're really trying to look at each of these policies and make them as strong as we possibly can. So I agree. Paul?
Well, I have a statement and a concern. I can pretty much support the policy that I read that was on the internet as revised from last time. But given this discussion, obviously we need to proceed very cautiously and carefully. Are we tweaking language around the edges, or are we considering a fundamental change, as Janine suggested? You know, I think that we need to come to grips with that question. But I have another concern about proceeding cautiously. And we need to make sure that we have addressed the public's concerns, the whole public's concerns. Communications, and we know that there's policy. And we want the public to be educated on what is in the policy and what is in the law, and also communicate the steps that have already addressed the concern. I guess what I'm saying is that we open when we receive, we have received writing. Writing to concerns and educate people on what this policy really is and what we're really doing. You know, for example, in the bathroom, that shouldn't be an issue, but for some reason it is. And we need, so I think maybe we need to create an understanding, at least, that the superintendent could respond in writing to comments and concerns that are submitted in writing to the superintendent. Is that an okay thing? So obviously, we need more work on this.
All right. Let's send that one back down. All right, let's move forward then. We have a grand list of informational items, meetings in particular. Stop, letter M. Don't want to read them all. Bring them. Yes. Y'all see anything on there that doesn't look correct?
Only the fact that, we'll decide about the other special board meeting. That's why we'll decide.
Yeah. Make a decision on that. Okay. Now, we will look for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Purposes of
Negotiations and pending or current litigation.
all those in favor?
Yes, for the beginning, I would like to invite Mr. Wolf and Mrs. Bellotta.
Good, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 9:05. There won't be any action.